I think we got to pay it at the batteries. She put those in there brand new.
All right, can you all hear me okay? Great. All right, well, again, it's a pleasure to be before you here tonight. My name is Kelly Davis. Again, I'm with the Berkeley Group. We have been working diligently, taking all the input that we have received from you all to create the first draft chapters of the comprehensive plan. I hope that you all have had a chance to review that meeting information, this very thick packet before you. If you haven't had a chance to read through it all, I would encourage you to at least focus on the policy chapters and the strategies that we have included in here. And then, we'll continue to accept comments throughout this process. But we'll also have the opportunity to talk through it all and take comments tonight. So with that, I'm going to move into a slideshow portion, and I'm going to go ahead and ask that we dim the lights down. And that should be good. Y'all can see the slide.
Kelly, hey, can you speak into the mic a little better?
Shh. How about now?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That's great.
Sure. You might have to, I like to move around a little bit, so you might have to remind me. All right, so, all right. I'm trying to go for 2 presentations here. Let me see it. There we go. All right, here is our agenda for tonight. So I'll start with a quick review of current progress. We've been through the overall process a few times, so we'll just briefly touch on where we're at in that process. Then we'll touch on the draft chapter 1 that you've received. You had received this chapter before, so we won't spend a lot of time on it, but it has been revised with the recent survey information that is also included in your packet. Then we'll move into a brief discussion on the chapter 2, which is about Greenville. This is kind of an introduction to your community and the revised vision statement, which we had discussed in the last meeting. In addition, we will move through, really the bulk of this meeting will be devoted to the policy chapter review, and those are 3 chapters that we've submitted to you. That's quality of life, infrastructure, and economy. We'll close out with next steps. So you've seen this slide before, and we started with a basic review and internal diagnostic of the plan that we had shared with you. We've been through public workshops and the public survey. We have worked through some discussion on the vision and those draft goal statements. And now we're really into that section on drafting the plan elements, the maps, and working through implementation strategies. So this meeting and the next 2 meetings will kind of be in that same portion of the project scope and where we are in the process. So before, and this slide is another slide that you've seen before, the highlighting in yellow shows the different chapters that you've received so far. Like I mentioned before, about the plan, community overview, and then you received quality of life and the economy and infrastructure chapter. Now, one thing I want to point out is that we had originally proposed to combine economy and infrastructure into 1 chapter. As we worked through all of the information and took everything that y'all had related to infrastructure and economy, we decided to break those into 2 separate chapters. It was just a lot, kind of became heavy to work through and read. We felt like it would be more accessible to split those 2 up. Let us know if you have any concerns about that. Here we go. All right. So this slide you had also seen before. You received chapter 1 of the plan to just orient you at the last meeting. What I want to highlight about chapter 1 is that this now incorporates the full community input overview. And then you have the final survey results at the very end of your packet. So if you want to know and really dive into that, I think there was some really interesting information that came out of that community survey. So definitely take a look through what your community is saying. Some of it seemed to be focused on Emporia, but there was a lot of good information relevant to Greensville as well. And where possible, we've taken little snippets of that and included little call outs in the policy chapters as well to draw attention and help us guide development of the strategies in this plan. So chapter 2 outlines the history, geography, and demographics of Greenville County. This is basically, we were taking that community profile sheet that you received at the last meeting, and it now includes a more detailed and robust narrative as the full chapter 2 about Greenville chapter. We have also provided a revised vision statement, and there's a little bit of discussion in your memo that kind of outlines that vision statement process and how we came to the revised vision statement. So I'll touch on that in the next slide. So if you will remember from our last discussion, the community vision statement is supposed to ground and align the plan. It's supposed to be a positive, realistic, and accurate vision for your community. And it kind of needs to achieve this balance between being broad and encompassing and also specific to help us define what makes our community unique, who we are, and what we want to be. Keep losing my mouse, excuse me. There we go. And so after our last discussion, you all had pointed out some of the different vision statements that you liked that the community had developed during that community input session. And we've refined the vision statement that we originally proposed into this vision statement that you see on the screen. And so what I'm asking for your input tonight is, are we okay with this vision statement? Does it define who you want to be as a community? And are we good to move forward with it? So that community vision statement as revised is, as a forward-thinking community with strong family values, Greensville County will support job creation, education, and high quality of life that strengthens our economy, encourages strategic growth, while becoming a closer bound community sensitive to the needs of all of our residents. Any comments on that vision statement? You can give me a thumbs up if you're happy with it, or raise your hand if you have any final comments that you would like to see incorporated into the vision statement. Okay, all right. If you have any comments on it, if you want to bring it up, we'll have some discussion time at the end, but for now, we'll move forward with this vision statement, and if there's any issues, just let me know. So the next chapter that you received is attachment 3 in your packet. It's the quality of life chapter. And as we began drafting this plan, we came to the conclusion that Greensville County would need to take a more expansive view of a traditional community facilities chapter. This is actually the first plan that I worked on that has a quality of life chapter, but I have seen it in other communities too. We drafted the quality of life chapter to consider other community assets beyond just your public facilities. So this considers both public and private facilities that contribute to the level of satisfaction and happiness that citizens experience in their community. So this chapter does discuss government and social services and education. It also covers things like recreation, health, and to some extent public transportation, although we'll also discuss that further in the transportation chapter. It also includes, very briefly, things like cultural, social, and religious engagement and opportunity to participate in community events and things like that. This chapter is important. It discusses these assets that are so necessary and critical for a thriving community, and it also helps bolster this idea of creating a strong community that supports economic development and is really that idyllic community that people want to come to and live. So the strategies, I apologize, I'm having a little bit of trouble here with this mouse. The strategies in this chapter, I would encourage you to go to the back of that chapter and take a look through and read through the strategies in this chapter. The first 7 strategies kind of touch on general government. It's things like partnerships, just keeping your facilities maintained. It also talks about the availability of public information and online services. And those are 2 things that we heard pretty loudly during the public engagement. So the availability and accessibility of information was highlighted during the workshops. So there are some ideas in there about how you might be able to improve that. Some communities, for instance, offer a monthly utility bill newsletter or email newsletters. Some communities also have county-run Facebook pages, and that can help to get information and events out there, notifications, things like that. And then the next set of strategies in this chapter touches on your school system. Second only to job opportunities was the issue of education was the issue of most concern to your citizens. And I'll just note that according to the respondents that were surveyed, 59% said education was one of the top 3 issues that the county should focus on for its future. So schools is very important to your community. You all have already made decisions to support that high school feasibility study. And there's already a lot of great work going on. So the strategies there are intended to highlight and expand those existing programs and support action on those studies as they're completed and conducted. If we've misinterpreted any of the information that we've heard or need to modify the language in any of those, I do hope that you all will correct me. The next set of strategies in this chapter covers recreation. There was strong support in your survey for more recreation. 92% of survey respondents indicated that they would encourage more public parks. 82% said they would like more outdoor recreation opportunities. And about 76% said they'd like to see more cultural opportunities. And so those items are covered here, and we've provided some ideas through the strategies on ways that you could do that. One of the things that I notice here is that even in this space, there's plenty of open space that could be utilized to support recreation. Maybe that means adding outdoor fitness equipment or disc golf or some other different things to utilize the spaces that you have in the land that the government already owns. So we have suggested an interest survey or a needs assessment so that you can really start to understand better what those survey respondents are saying or what they're desiring and what they would like to see in terms of the park use and outdoor recreation. That is a holdover from your last comprehensive plan. It suggested a formal countywide park study or needs assessment. You might be able, for less money, to be able to just do a basic interest survey using SurveyMonkey, but a formalized needs assessment across the county is going to be a more resource intensive use. So I've included both of those as a strategy in a single strategy so that you all can make the best decision of what makes sense for your community. So in addition, we're suggesting a public safety assessment. Public safety, Len can maybe speak a little bit more to that too. But we didn't get great information with regards to what the needs were related to public safety, but we do understand that there is some concern related to the use of fire and rescue volunteers rather than permanent staff, and whether that's kind of what the solutions might be for your community, and that would be something that needs a closer look or further assessment. We also heard in the survey that there is some desire for additional public transportation. About 55 of the 125 people surveyed felt that public transportation needed to be expanded. It seems that your service is really good, so that's another thing that we want to explore in a little more detail in your transportation chapter to see and look at those routes a little closer and dive into that a little bit more as well. Are there any questions on the strategies in the quality of life chapter?
I think on public safety, I don't remember exactly where. On the public safety assessment, I don't remember exactly where I read it now. I think it was on page 10. I don't think that's correct. Because I think that we have a county employee that maybe say the fire chief reports to one of the county employees. So there is some interaction, and there is maybe a paid employee.
She's waiting to get more information.
But she didn't, say that, so it's not really completely, I think that strides are being made to, make it more of, paid, if that's possible, with budget constraints down the road. So I think that kind of already is in the works, and that didn't seem to be reflected, or I was concerned that you didn't know that.
They have sent Mr. Owens, the emergency operations director. He's been tied up the last couple of weeks with COVID on his clinics, but he has a whole list of questions that he's going to answer for you that will address some of these issues that you don't see.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, like I said, that was one portion of this, and there's even an editor's note in there that we have requested some additional information, and we will incorporate that with track changes for y'all when we get that information. Any other questions on the quality of life strategies? The other thing that I should have mentioned previously is that we've also drafted kind of a priority list here. And so if you have any comments on those, either on the strategies themselves or if they should be higher or lower, we can talk through any of that as well.
Was this this was the section where it also listed the statistics about the number of county residents that had diabetes?
I believe that, yes, this was the section that had the health information in it as well.
I don't remember right this second. I'm sorry, I read this about a week ago.
Sure.
We haven't had electricity, so I haven't reread it as of yesterday or today. So, was there anything in our strategies that maybe dealt with that, maybe having more, say, community events that might, test for that, or educational events, with that to maybe work with, I don't know, what we need to do. I just found that alarmingly high.
I think that the way that we did not. So I'll start by saying I don't believe that there's anything that's directly directing the county to work with a partner in terms of health-related events. But that's not to say that you could not include that in here if there's general support or something like that. Really, the key way that we had interpreted that would be
For recreation.
more opportunities for recreation would be at least a first natural step for the community, but certainly some educational events related to that might be perfectly appropriate. It's always a fine balance of how.
I know,
Yeah.
what we can do, you know,
Right.
we need the community to do, but, again, you know, I think sometimes that we overlook recreation because we look at it, saying, oh, we don't have the money to put up a walking trail and it's a rural community, we don't need one. But I think as people get older, it's very hard to walk, in the woods and get your heart rate up. I've tried, it's hard. You're too busy trying to walk over leaves and stumps and sticks. And there is no safe way to go down these rural roads. And I think, again, a lot of our seniors would like to be able to walk outside on a trail. A lot of them are not the treadmill YMCA type, you know, but they would like, you know, an outdoor trail that was flat, that was, you know, that was asphalted, where they could get their heart rate up and do that. So I do think that's a need for that. We should maybe move that up on the priority. I think a lot of that, I think one of them was low. That's my opinion on it, but.
So that was the strategies are on page 11 of the Quality of Life Chapter 5. So is there general support for adding a strategy related to health, supporting health-related events to promote education and awareness on diabetes and other health issues in the county? Would that be something that the county would be supportive of?
I was really going for that.
And what about, would there be an appropriate partner for that? So perhaps we could partner with the hospital and the health district. Is there anybody else that would be an appropriate partner that we would want to list under responsibility for that?
The YMCA could contribute to that, because Kim, they get grants periodically for free diabetes programs for educational purposes. And so they would be a perfect partner to help with the education portion.
And you know, one of the roles that the county could play in that is just to promote those events. You know, to make them build awareness through your website, through newsletters, if you choose to do something like that too. Allow me to take a note here.
While you're doing that, I'll just say I was impressed to see 20 strategies. That's pretty aggressive. I didn't expect all that when I flipped the page.
There's a lot, this chapter is covering a lot. And if it's too much and we need to strike some, let me know. But this is a pretty comprehensive chapter that's covering a lot of important things in your community. Was there a specific strategy that you said should be moved from up to high?
It just seemed like I remembered one that was about parks or rec or whatever, something that was low priority, but I don't remember which one it was now.
So that was number 15. So we could move that up. Would that be a medium or a high priority for y'all?
Yeah, I think it could at least be medium.
Does anyone else have any opinions on this particular strategy and how important is recreation for your community? I mean, we did see, it did figure strongly in the survey, so it really comes down to, it will help to translate these into an action plan. that identifies timeframes. So really, is it in terms of resources and availability and where it falls on that priority list? That's what we're talking about here. Is it your high priority items are generally, I think schools is pretty much your high priority items. And then we've got everything else in that low to medium category. So we can either put this particular item on medium or high.
I like to say recreation, and we do have some things in the works, so it would be very high. So anytime you go to the community and talk to anybody, recreation is a very big part of the conversation. We've got a lot of that. And there are some things in the works that's going to become concerned about recreation. Just with Kim, what I think that needs to come up, special recreation. All working on taking John is all going to be, and if you go out, everybody always think that we're sitting here and we can do what we can do. But you always have somebody also with recreation, especially for facilities, that's willing to invest some dollars into it. Also, and I think recreation is one that, outside of going to work, recreation is the next thing in the community.
Because right now, to find a biking trail or a hiking trail, you have to go to another community. Like Petersburg, Battlefield, Chesterfield, the Capitol Trail, Richmond to Jamestown. I mean, they're heavily used. A lot of older couples walk, biking kids, and so that'd be an awesome thing to have.
Yeah. And that's another thing, biking, again, it's a little bit, I think people would take advantage of a biking trail and use that. Because again, it's dangerous on the county roads to bike. And again, just another avenue that could be explored, explore for do we have a bike club?
Now, you mentioned that, sorry to butt in on you.
That's right.
I forgot you mentioned the Tobacco Heritage Trail from Lawrenceville to South Hill. And then it skips and it's beyond, it goes on to a farm, it's back up. And that's awesome, right there from Lawrenceville to South Hill.
So I believe that's that Virginia pipeline trail. We have that on here still as 16. And we understand that there are some issues on the right of way for certain components of that trail, but maybe that needs to be elevated in priority too, and then maybe there's just a portion of that trail that could be developed or needs a feasibility study and to request that through VDOT. I'm sure Lynn knows a bit more about that than I do and how much has been done, but if that's something that you would like us to talk with staff a little bit more about, and we can explore that further here.
I don't think many people are aware that there is a trail here close by. I don't know how long it is. It may be overgrown. I'm trying to recall how it got put in. If you walk under the front of the sheriff's office and go toward 95 and then go over there in the woods, there is a trail there.
It's still there.
It's still there?
Yeah.
If nobody's doing anything to it, it's probably overgrown.
No, we tend to.
Do you? Well, how long is it?
If you'd asked me 10 years ago, I could have told you exactly. It's just basically a loop from behind community corrections over here to 95, and it loops back. It's not a big trail. It's got a couple more creek crossings, and it has one elevated platform overlooking the wetlands. The only issue with that trail is when it gets warm, mosquitoes and deer flies are the worst.
Is it gravel or asphalt or what?
It has the rock quarry donated the rock dust for the base of the trail. So we have that rock dust base.
Okay.
I'll make a note for myself that we need in April, when hopefully it's a little warmer, we'll go out there and take some photos of that, and maybe we can even get a little map and reference into this chapter here. I know we discussed that last time.
Probably not many people want to come up to the jail and take a walk.
Correct.
It was over there, and I didn't, Forsyth wasn't he instrumental in getting that done? over the jail years ago.
Now, we just had to get easement from the jail because part of it was on their property. We got some funding from the Pamlico, Albemarle,
Okay.
Conservation District for trails, to do that project.
Okay.
Like you said, it's between 301 and 95, it's kind of noisy.
Yeah.
You know, in the summertime, it can be a challenge because of the insects.
And Leon, I was thinking that it was originally thought it would primarily be used by county staff that are working on the campus, like for lunchtime walks and things like that.
They could, over the years since we've completed the circle, if you come over here at lunchtime, we have several people that work on this campus that walk. They don't usually walk the trail, they walk a parking lot system here.
Do you like the idea of adding more recreational options or amenities to this site or to other sites? Would there be any desire to actually articulate specific locations or amenities in the text? I believe on page, let's see, I know in this chapter we did kind of highlight some options that could be considered on page 6 at the bottom of page 6. But if there is specific things that you'd like us to highlight or locations where, you have heard people ask for a specific recreation option or specific park within the community that needs some investment, we can use this plan to incorporate that information and guide staff.
I would think maybe just some language about maybe the Tobacco Heritage Trail. If somehow we can develop some portion of that.
Another thing, we have numerous game and inland fishery boat ramps, especially on the Nottoway and kayaking and tubing. That's become a popular destination for people to come to the Nottoway. So we can map the locations of those places where people can put in and take out and float the Nottoway.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, and it was interesting with the Department of Wildlife, their information basically said there was a need for an additional takeout beyond Emporia to be able to promote the kayaking and tubing.
Yeah. There's a place you can put in, it depends on how long you want to stay on the river. There's a place you can put in Brunswick. You can float to Twin Bridges at Purdy. That's the next public location. And then downstream from that, where we have our intake for our water plant, there's another game and fishery boat landing there. You can take that. There's numerous in Sussex on up Fort Garrett. If you go to Game Inland Fisheries website, they actually map all of those places on the Nottoway that you can take over. Yes, it is a little bit further east of me. It's a long ways around Gary's Bridge, Cortland, before you get to another place you can take out.
That's a long float trip, but that's
Yeah.
what you better
Stay
you better carry your lunch bag with you.
Most people here, most of the land, or just about all the land on the Nottoway is privately owned. There are places like Fox Pen, they let people put in there, some of the farmers let people put in, that not open to the public. But that's what a lot of people do. There are, some float opportunities that can go from one public facility to another.
So maybe we can build out one of those maps a little bit more to show some of that opportunities.
Like I said, if you go to Game and Fisheries website, they have probably cut and paste, posted the information, and I'll get it together for you also.
So we have some of that under, on page 7, under outdoor recreation. So the boating and fishing access. We didn't specifically mention tubing, but that's certainly something we can add here. All right. So any other comments on this chapter? We'll go ahead and mark the recreation as a high item for you all. I heard some consensus there.
There's also an opportunity, I know the city has a couple boat landings. What do y'all think about putting that, just mention those opportunities in our comp plan, even though they're in the city? But they're there for the general public, so county residents definitely, can utilize them. I think we ought to just highlight them, maybe in the inventory like we're doing with the Nottaway. Y'all have a problem with that? It still benefits the county citizens.
I
Okay,
don't see a problem with it. More often than not, this year's been underwater. It's underwater as we speak tonight.
So Lynn, if you can look at this outdoor recreation section and let me know if there's any edits there that we've missed or misinterpreted, that'd be good. All right. So before I move on, any other final comments on the quality of life strategies or the text of the chapter while we're there? Okay. If anything sparks your interest or anything comes to you, then we'll have opportunity to revisit. So your next attachment, the next chapter that we've provided to you is attachment 4, and this is the infrastructure chapter. And the county has made infrastructure a real priority in the previous comprehensive plan. A lot of your infrastructure goals and strategies were accomplished. And so you're actually seeing the fruits of that labor. You're experiencing those infrastructure developments, and they've introduced new economic possibilities to the area. So chapter 7 outlines these accomplishments and then basically is continuing that path, highlighting the additional public services and opportunities that it has created. There we go. So the first set of strategies in this chapter is related to water and sewer. We're continuing the idea of, from the previous comprehensive plan, of focusing your public and water sewer expansions in urban service areas. So the map on the right-hand side of the screen is your existing urban service areas that we've mapped. And in talking with staff, I do want to note that we will have the opportunity to revisit this map and the specific land use categories when we get into the land use section. So this map in particular is not set, but I would like to view this as a placeholder until we move forward and finalize the land use chapter. And we'll come back and revisit this map after that. But we do think that you all have done a great job in focusing your water and sewer infrastructure and building that infrastructure, and it's to be commended. The next set of strategies 6 through 9, are related to broadband service. And this was something of great importance to the community. We understand, based off our last meeting, and we were having trouble tracking down the data, that the broadband service number that we had from the census was not accurate, and staff has corrected and provided us that number, so you'll see that in your next draft of this plan. So that number is quite a bit lower than what the census reports. But there is strategies related to working with the Empower broadband service to ensure that reliable, effective, and affordable internet access across the community. Another item, which is something that I do want to draw your attention to, is supporting the siting of telecommunications structures to improve self-service. I have not specifically reviewed Greenville's comprehensive plan as it relates to telecommunication structures, and Lynn may be able to provide me a little more detail, but a lot of communities take a really hard line towards cell towers. And when broadband is such an important resource and need for infrastructure need in your community, it really can be helpful to look at your zoning ordinance and determine whether you're placing barriers and then whether those barriers are too strict when it comes to siting telecommunications structures. So that is a strategy that's in here. If there's concern with that, we can talk about it during the discussion period.
I don't think our ordinance is too strict on guiding cell tower development, because right now, all we have is 5895, we won't deal as many places as it can. We've actually met, with Verizon mapping out the area, so I don't think our ordinance is at all too restrictive on the locations for the cell tower infrastructure. And we do have a category on our GIS, so I can get this Husky to get you that information.
So sure, we can add those to the map as well. I would encourage to have that strategy in there so that it can support staff in making your 2232 or your special use permit review for the comprehensive plan considerations as well. And then another thing that we heard that is included in here as a strategy is related to the natural gas feasibility. I'd like y'all to take a look at that strategy number 10. If there's any concerns about that one, let me know, or if staff has any concerns about how we worded that. We understand that there is a desire for additional natural gas, but there was some concerns there with providing that or whether it was feasible. So strategy number 10 is to continue to study the feasibility of providing natural gas service to residential and business customers. If that needs to be tweaked or changed, well, looks like Lynn is nodding yes to me. Do you want to comment on that now?
Natalie Slate has worked for several years trying to get natural gas in, so I'm going to get this part of this chapter in her room, fine tooth comb, and give you the data we have available.
We are currently doing engineering to get it at least to the mega.
Yes,
And hopefully with that we could expand.
branch off, from like.
And also natural gas will be very important because this will be one of the main things for stock industry. You always get, if you have natural gas, you can come. So they don't want to come because we ain't got natural gas and we want them to come. We'll come, we cut to our rapid hotspot. That's one of the main things. We definitely need to be a high priority of this natural gas. One thing that we really don't have to have to move the county forward from that mindset.
I think when you look at the main mega site, that's the one missing piece of the puzzle. We're working to try to correct it.
Will
Do we
that,
want to have that as a specific standalone strategy for MAMAC, as a high priority to have implement natural gas to make MAMAC as a high priority?
I think you can break it into two priorities, one for that and then one just general for areas we'd like to see develop commercially and industrially.
and residentially too, because we've currently got natural gas run to DOC now in different areas, so we've got some opportunities there hopefully to expand that.
That's one of the first questions that businesses ask to develop here is, natural gas. That's a big deal. So I think it should definitely be a high priority for our community.
Okay, so I think I heard consensus that we'll add a high priority for natural gas to the MAMAC site. And do you want number 10 to be increased from a low priority to a medium or a high priority?
I think we need to put it at high.
For all residential and business customers?
I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about the,
MAMAC is high.
I'd say medium right now for residential. Once we get the infrastructure here, some of our industrial sites will be able to.
agreement for medium on that.
Hopefully if we get it at the industrial sites, we can expand.
Correct, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
We gotta take baby steps somewhere.
We can ask about the priority. I mean, if you can get it in the residential section, that would be wow. I mean, of course, right now, getting it to the industry part for that, so the next site is a great thing, but if you're struggling in terms of like, if we can get that to residential, I mean, you know, you'd be surprised how low now, heat bill would be in the winter, it would be unbelievable. So, you know, but I understand what you're saying from industrial, but if you're asking an overall question, it would be a great interest for everybody, if we can get, you know, for most places around here, we're having a hard time trying to get the industry that's on, you know.
Well, I think residential, I think the most important that is water, is utility, water, and sewer. But commercial, business, industrial, I think natural gas is a huge deal for them.
So what I could do is I could make, I could actually modify this slightly to say, we'll implement or find or natural gas to industry and business with MAMAC as a top priority, and kind of word it so that all of that is high, but MAMAC is kind of standing out among that. Does that fit what you all are talking about?
So,
Oh, maybe go back. So the next set of strategies is related to solid waste. We understand that there is a landfill study that is underway currently, and that we should receive the results of that prior to the adoption of this comprehensive plan. So we will continue to look for those recommendations, and if there's anything specific, we can come back to y'all and modify this. Right now, it's a little bit vague just to say implement the study, which is fine, but if there's anything specific that y'all want to actually include in here, once you get those recommendations back, we can do that. We also have a strategy on expanding recycling where feasible. I know that recycling abroad is very difficult right now and increasingly so, but the county has done a lot to try to reuse materials and recycle where feasible. We have also have a strategy in here to utilize the solar siting agreements to expand your infrastructure. That is supporting the use of siting agreements. It's not, this particular strategy in this section is not going to be directing the location or timing and development of solar siting agreements or facilities. We'll talk on that in the land use chapter, and I also understand that staff is currently working on a comprehensive plan amendment. So
And zoning ordinance.
and zoning ordinance amendment on this particular issue, so we'll continue to look for that as well, to make sure that anything that we're drafting coincides and is aligns with that as well. And then finally, in this section, your last two are kind of general strategies related to infrastructure, and these can also be seen almost as land use strategies as well. Number 14 is encouraging that new development within your public service areas. And then number 15 is to continue to invest and maintain your existing infrastructure, maintaining that level of service and providing timely and cost-effective replacement where needed. So it's kind of just keep what you have in good condition and direct growth where you have infrastructure. So with that, I will open the floor to any questions about the infrastructure chapter. Again, looking for any feedback that you have on the text itself, anything that we might have gotten wrong, or any strategies that you feel like are need to be higher priorities, need to be added. I always like to think of this as what's missing or what can be improved. We are on, the infrastructure strategies are on page 10 of chapter 6.
When we get more information about the broadband, we're gonna revisit that about point centers. And same thing with landfills. I don't know, I've had some questions maybe about increasing awareness for recycling. You know, I'm not sure. I guess I have observed this, and I guess I wasn't here when you started
Convenience centers.
the convenience centers, yeah. And so, you know, I wasn't here when, like, maybe everybody got educated on what you can recycle and what you can't. Because I'm, again, coming from an area where we recycle everything, and then Dad gets mad at me, he's like, well, they don't recycle that. And so, you know, I was just wondering if, you know, maybe there was an opportunity to, explore, maybe you guys have had a hard time maybe finding people to take certain things like glass or stuff like that, that there would maybe, and I don't know what maybe what we might find in a landfill study, but of course to increase, you know, prolong land use life, if there was other things that maybe we could recycle that we don't. And I'm probably not even aware of everything that maybe we do recycle that I don't know about. Because I don't necessarily I know maybe having a little sheet, like a refrigerator magnet, that was kind of what I was used to, of do's and don'ts of what you recycle and what you don't, you know, I'm usually just asking the guy at the landfill, you know, at the recycling center.
I think that's something we can easily do. When you have our map with the sites, we can identify which one of the full service sites that have the recycling boxes. And of course, at those sites that have information, but as far as putting together literature, Reggie and that group did do that when they started.
Initially, that's right.
Initially, but yeah, it needs to be.
Like refreshed or
That's
maybe,
something,
or maybe, because we don't do glass, right?
it depends on how the market is. It got to the point we had to pay people to haul glass and the market fluctuates a lot. We can still take it when people brought it to us. And we finally got somebody to take it away without charging us, and when it gets to a certain price, they pay us. So for a while, we were having to pay to take away some of the metals, and the metal dropped. So we have an agreement now, you know, if it's below 3 cents a pound, we don't have to pay them, they did it, and when it gets above 3 cents a pound, we get paid for it. So I think you will see an uptick in the recycling market. We've already seen it. When I checked the other day, iron was, I think, 14 per 100, which is a lot higher than it's been. So yeah, I think we can put those specific centers in the comp plan identified, and then there's public outreach. You know, there's the website, flyers, mailings, there's a lot we can do. So she could use that as one of her strategies.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of opportunity for educating public citizens of what can be recycled.
Because again, I just think if they, you know, it's that visual reminder, then you will do it. And if there is no visual reminder, then you won't. It's just easier to get you in the trash. You know, but if you knew exactly, yeah, take this or whatever, and you keep, you know, seeing that somewhere, maybe on a sign there, or you actually had, you know, a little sheet, that we mailed everybody, whatever that may help.
And a lot of the economics involved in recycling is what we're doing with this fiscal impact analysis we're doing right at the landfill, and all that will be done before the content process is complete. Will be, I think she mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
You know, that'll be in there. That's part of that was recycling, and how we can use it to benefit the county in the best way.
So I will go ahead and add a strategy related to the recycling educational awareness. We can note that in the text as well, some examples of what other communities do in terms of the magnets and you know, your flyers and having that information readily available on your website. Is that that's a pretty, that can be a short-term task. I mean, it's not, you know, a very resource-intensive task. Is it a high priority task? We can kind of call it short-term. Is it high priority? Where does it fall on that priority list?
I think that depends on the landfill study.
Yes. I think you will see a surge in recycling in the next few years. That's just my personal opinion. It kind of comes and goes, and it's on, like I said, it's on the uptick now. And I think short term, we maybe could put it medium or high. But I think one thing we need to do, and I think one suggestion y'all have is a county newsletter, and I think the board might agree, especially with COVID going on now. We need, I think it's just me, get a maybe a monthly newsletter that tells a lot of things, not just recycling, but COVID and anything else. And that'd be a good way to put out this information, in addition to the magnets and other items.
All right, anything else related to the infrastructure chapter that you all would like to highlight? Okay, hearing none, always bring something back up at the end. We will move on to our final chapter for tonight, and that is the economy chapter. This is attachment 5 in your packet. And I'll start by saying that a comprehensive plan is in some ways really the community's economic development plan, because all of the components in your comprehensive plan are relevant to your economy, and your economy is relevant to all of the components of your comprehensive plan. Due to your significant infrastructure investments, we really feel that Greensville County is doing all of the right things to make itself right for economic progress, and that there's a lot of potential here for future economic opportunities. And so for your goal statement here on the screen, you're looking at promoting economic growth, attracting industry and small business, creating economic diversity, not just of large businesses, but of small retail, recreation, things like that. All of which is to provide exceptional quality of life for Greensville citizens. The chart on your right of your screen is showing the different total jobs in different industries in Greensville County, about 30% in manufacturing and another 30% in public administration and government. So just a little snippet from what is a more detailed economic profile in your packet that follows that, the second page on that chapter 2.
Where do schools fall on that chart?
They are likely to be under that public administration category. Anything that falls in the government. I don't believe we have a specific number in here. I'm trying to look at, yeah, in terms on this profile sheet, the schools is showing up as the 3rd of your top employers.
I was assuming that, you listed the top, employers, and that number 10, that delicatessen services company is what the, Greenville Correctional uses for their food service. Is that what that is?
Right.
I was just kind of curious what, I guess, number 11 would have been, you know.
So the Virginia Employment Commission does a more detailed profile, and I think it lists up to 25 employers. This might be from the county's website. I have to double check with Erin on that. And VEC, I believe, it's not just Greensville County, it would also include Emporia, usually, if I'm.
Correct, so they have a good document to put in there. Should go to VC's website,
Okay.
community profile, and pull up all the community profiles for it.
And with some of that, the data just, sometimes it's a little dated and sometimes it includes Emporia too. So we're always kind of have to be careful on what we report.
I've got the list, I just gave a Google. Right here, so they bring it with me.
I was just curious, you know, because that's like, you know, really that's all jail related. So, you know, I was looking at that as one unit, you know, what the other ones would be.
All right. So let me start here. So this chapter it's a little bit different in its organization. It includes some data. We talk about the different industries that are here. We also talk about some of the different economic drivers in this chapter. We talk about the available sites. We've highlighted MAMAC. I was really impressed by the MAMAC website. I've got a little photo on this slide of that as well. And so we just mentioned transportation, infrastructure. So there's, like I said, kind of to start this section, there is overlap between your economy chapter and the other chapters of your comprehensive plan that we've highlighted here. Agriculture it's an interesting thing here in the county because it's not a large employer and yet it's still really important, and rural character is very important as we saw from the community survey. So we only have one strategy in the economy chapter related to agriculture, and it is talking about kind of food systems planning. If you're interested and want us to explore additional agricultural strategies, we can. I'd like that direction from you before we go down that route. However, or if you have specific strategies related to agriculture that we should add. It's just not a top employer, and it seems that there's a lot of drive toward the manufacturing and businesses. But we did want to highlight that there are different USDA programs and grants that are out there to support food systems planning. This is an example from Potomac Highlands in West Virginia that was done through a USDA grant to basically serve as a resource and consortium for different growers in the area, local farmers and producers, and providing a website and highlighting and different marketing for your local farmers and where you can find their products. A large part of what, at least from what I've seen, it is cotton here, so that's not going to have as much of that desire from kind of Richmond restaurants or Emporia or wherever, but this might be an option that's not currently being undertaken in your community. Let's see here. Oh, backwards. The next strategy is related to promoting the different business incentives that are here in the community. You have an opportunity zone that is federally designated that covers the top portion of your county. That's in blue, and that provides, if you're not already familiar with it, that provides incentives, tax incentives for investors that create jobs and start new businesses. You also have enterprise zones, and the county has some specific, partnered with Emporia, I believe, to have some specific enterprise zone incentives. It's a pretty robust incentive package from what I've seen, and that's those areas in purple that are shown on this slide. So really, you have a lot of incentives already. The question is, how well are they being promoted? And maybe there's opportunities within your government. For instance, someone comes to the counter to Lynn, and maybe he needs to have a marketing brochure that he can hand to them related to business incentives. Maybe you already have that, but that was an idea that we had related to how to promote those business incentives that are available.
Is this slide in our package that we got? I can't seem to find that. That's a cool slide.
I think it probably has the other photo on it. The photos probably overlap there. It's all the same text there on the left. It looks like it's slide 16.
Yeah. She's not in the packet.
And if you'd like, we can add this map. It's not currently in the chapter, but if that's helpful, or if you like that slide with the incentive areas, we can add that into the comp plan as well.
I would like to, I know when people come into the office while they're out there, a lot of people look at our website, look at our comp plan before they ever come into the office, and, that could attract somebody, just with their
Man, is that,
worldwide way of fishing.
is this available on the website?
The enterprise zone is in the existing comp plan. Not more updated the existing comp plan. Now, the opportunity zone is not. So I think we need to add, we need to keep the enterprise zone and add the opportunity zone to this comp plan is what I'm trying to say.
Just a question, that at some point in the past, we apparently decided everything north of the river was gonna be an opportunity and enterprise.
Yes, you can apply, for the opportunity zone. You can't apply for the whole.
If you have a business or more traffic north of the river.
And I think that's because our industrial park, Maymac, and the area near Moore's Head, all that's north of the river. There's a lot more activity and potential north of the river than it is south of the river for industry.
Is there some point in the future?
Oh, yeah, we
It
can
doesn't
change.
seem fair for that to be the north of the river to be highlighted in a sweetheart deal, and the south of the river is just pavement.
Yeah, but
But
you can,
at some point, we can flip.
yeah, you can reapply, change both the enterprise and the opportunity zone.
I want all those in my district.
And we just.
I thought it was actually some areas designated out towards the Skipper's area as well.
In the opportunity zone or
There's a third zone called the hub zone that is not shown on this map. I can see if we can get those areas mapped as
I've
well.
got the official maps in my office, so I'll double check that against what she has. You pulled that off of the state website.
I did, yeah.
I just thought at some point in about 10 years, we were gonna flip.
I'm pretty sure we've got some areas out towards the Skipper's.
As far as the opportunity zone, that's always been handled by economic development, and for me, but I've got the official map, so.
Okay, I certainly got some areas out there, especially in exit 4 and everything, that have a lot of.
So maybe there needs to be a strategy, an additional business incentive related strategy of both continuing to offer those incentives and then exploring the addition of new areas that are target growth areas for additional incentives.
Mr. Collins was right, there's a lot of things going on at exit 4, but look at that map.
Yeah,
You wouldn't think there's anything going on at all.
Yeah, and I know we've got some opportunities for additional growth. I mean, we've added infrastructure for that.
Correct.
The reason I want north of the river, because I live north of the river.
Yeah.
I was just joking about that one.
Yeah, I will see some activity on this day.
I agree, I think we need to spread that.
I mean, I think after 10 years, you know, I don't see a lot of things up there. Maybe we ought to give an opportunity to enhance the safety of the road for a while.
And I'll find out when the county applied for that opportunity, on how long that's been in place.
Okay.
Yeah, the opportunity zones were just a few years ago
Yeah,
by the governor, actually. The county probably applied and then the governor and his staff actually submitted that up into, to the federal level. But what we can do is talk with the economic development staff and see if she has any additional recommendations on either other incentives that we didn't include or need to make sure we include. And then we'll ask her about the potential for expansion into other growth areas.
I suppose, I'm assuming, trying to get myself oriented, the dark purple are the enterprise zones, right?
Correct. Yes, sir.
And I'm assuming that first one going west with that Dominion plan.
No, you're seeing some of Brunswick County, I think, over there.
Yeah,
That needs to be cut off.
yeah, sorry,
Oh, right there,
the
right.
county line is here. This is just a snip from the state's website.
Yeah, Dominion was not enterprise zone. I don't think they needed any financial help. But,
Well, it looks like most of the enterprise zone is right along 301. That's right.
it's the existing industrial park jumping across here at Maymac. And I've got a better map than what she's got. We can slide it here.
I just, advocate for the people on site side.
And then the piece you see here, Jared, that's that stretch going at the Boys Head where we have public water, public sewer. And we identified that as a future commercial and industrial site. And I know part of that land has been taken up by the reservoir and it's been taken up by Jared Solar that was approved. So, there's probably some land there that can't be developed, you know, for a business or something. So,
Before I move on to this, there are other business incentives that you're not currently utilizing that are permitted under state code. That's the technology and tourism zone. And I was wanting to pose the question, and we can talk about it also when we discuss strategies. If recommended by your economic development director, would you be interested in having exploration of those two zones be added into as a strategy into the comprehensive plan as additional incentives? They can offer things like permitting incentives. The tourism zone is particularly helpful for hotels and getting state support for recreation and those kinds of things. So those are two that I didn't see in your ordinance. In your being utilized currently, that I would like to be able to discuss with economic development if you all are supportive of that.
First of all, we need to move here in town. We don't have any, one on the south side.
Yeah, I agree, it needs to be in there. I think we have done some things with permitting, Lynn.
Oh, yes, but we do. Part of enterprise zone incentive package we offer is.
Yes, to answer your question, yes, I think we need to include that.
Those hotels, that's a huge investment for a hotel facility. So we need to say all of that, good advantage.
I think the tourism could also support some of that commercial recreation that we've heard so much about during community input. So that's a nice option as well. All right, we'll talk about that. So the next section, the next set of strategies is on industry. You all know your industry better than I do. Like I said, I was very impressed by your website that you have for MAMAC. There's a lot of workforce development already going on. You've got good marketing for MAMAC. The Greenville County Small Site Industrial Park is something that's noted as a strategy and continuing to explore and support that. If there's any updates there for me that I should know about, let me know. But those are kind of the key strategies related to industry. So the next set of strategies, quite a number. Did I get that right? No, it should be 6 through 9, not 6 through 19. Is to support any kind of revitalization efforts in Emporia. We did see, and that's coming from the survey. Obviously, we're not directly supporting Emporia's revitalization efforts, but it does impact your community, and we did hear in your survey folks saying that they wanted to see that reinvestment in your downtown. Emporia is your downtown. Maybe, and it's just occurring to me now, maybe that needs to include Jarrett as well, but I'll look to y'all to provide that. We also saw, the strategies here about supporting commercial expansion, and we also heard that there might be this idea that folks don't really want to necessarily support their neighbor's business, and so maybe there needs to be some kind of buy local campaign, more support for your local businesses here. We heard that there are incentives offered, but maybe it's just a matter of folks not really wanting to go to their neighbor's business. So that buy local campaign.
You can also include information Crater has with the buy local program. It's a lot of Emporia and Greenville businesses in that. I don't know if you have a copy of that. I can get that to you. It's on Crater's Planning District Commission's website, but they have a real strong buy local program that they get a lot of limited trade throughout the Crater district. It's free. If y'all had product you were producing, they'll advertise it for you. So I can get that information for you.
So we can take a look at that and then see if that strategy needs to be tweaked at all. And then maybe it's just a matter of getting some of that information on your website, out in newsletters, things like that. These little flyers that I have on the slide here, these are from Mecklenburg County. They have quite a number of these kind of flyers and informational brochure materials on different businesses and events and things like that that might be something to help support these smaller commercial businesses and support your local investment in your local community. And then we have a number of cross-cutting strategies related to economy that are really touching on and highlighting the importance of broadband, telework, education, and zoning and land use as it relates to the economy, kind of making those ties in this chapter. So with that, that concludes my kind of brief overview on the economy chapter. And then I would direct you to page 8 to take a look through the economy strategies. So it's chapter 7, page 8. And then it also continues on to page 9.
Look, I put a page on it. It was in here. I can't seem to find it. I got it off, but I looked for it, can't find it. It had something to do with the Virginia Pork Festival. That's no longer operational. We need to pull that up.
I've got that marked on there too.
Okay, I wish I could take that page from.
That was, actually, that was part of this chapter.
It was on quality of
It's in
life.
the
Yeah.
quality of life.
Because I saw that page, yeah.
I think this will be what, the third year they had had it?
I think so, and I suspect that will ever come back.
I don't think so.
You know,
Yes, page 8 on the quality of life.
It it's just a small town thing, and it's hard to come up with a strategy to change it, but it's hard to buy local anymore. I mean, you buy stuff at Walmart, but other than that, you get down to, I mean, if I want to buy a suit tomorrow, if I couldn't find something at Walmart, there's no place to buy it.
Right.
I mean, you gotta go to Home Depot for Petersburg. They just have a hard time finding anything now. They gotta go outside the community to do it. That's just a fact of life. I don't know how we correct that.
It's especially hard with your downtown being outside of your jurisdiction.
I've always answered that question when people ask me, you gotta have somebody willing to invest that dollar into a high, like clothing stores and stuff like that. If nobody's not willing to invest that dollar, then they gonna come in. So, you know, we just, because we sit here, we can just come up with the idea that, hey, we can bring in a movie theater. That's always a constant idea, but you gotta have somebody willing to invest in it in order to get it.
Yeah, there are some state funds that are available to create a downtown revitalization strategy. That if this was Emporia's comprehensive plan, I would probably propose that to them. But since it's the county, it's, you know, you have a stake in it, but at the same time, you can't drive and guide that. It's certainly partnering with them wherever you can. Any other comments on the economy chapter strategies? Okay. So hearing none, I'm going to move on. We can open it up for final questions and comments at the end, but this slide is basically your next steps. So we will continue our plan drafting over the next like 2 to 4 months. We'll have another work session in April and then again in July. And my plan is to bring back to you our housing chapter and your natural resources chapter, and then we'll start to talk about transportation and land use in the next meeting, but you won't have that draft yet. So we can talk about transportation improvements and land use improvements at our next meeting, along with 2 more policy chapters. So we'll have a similar format to this meeting next time. And then we will take all the comments, we will provide you with a final draft for review, and that'll be your final opportunity to take a look at any track changes, highlight anything new that might have come up since then, and we'll take that public review copy to an open house in summer of 2021, incorporate any final revisions, and then have public hearings. Seems like we're going in the right direction so far, so you know, we'll see what the public thinks, but hopefully it'll be pretty smooth and we can maybe even push up the schedule, and that'll be like early winter or late fall 2021 for adoption. All right, with that, any questions, any final comments on this or the process? All right. Well, if you have any comments that come to you or anything that you would like us to look into or explore further, please feel free to direct those questions to Lynn. My contact information is up here on the next slide as well. You're welcome to contact me if you need to. So thank you all so much for your time and your attention tonight, and thank you for allowing us to be part of this process with you. I think Planning Commission at least needs to close their meeting.
Well, she said you gotta close out. You did? You do? That's like, you know.
The planning commission can have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Have a second.